One More Wave's a nonprofit. We're based here in San Diego, California. And what we do is we provide injured and disabled veterans with customized surfing equipment. And that could be a wetsuit for somebody that's an amputee that needs something specialized, or surfboards, or anything really that's getting you riding the waves. We've got people that stand up paddleboard. We've got people that use things called wave skis, which is where you sit on top. Maybe someone can't stand and still wants to ride a wave. There's quite a few different options. But yeah, it's just whatever the person needs to get what we call surf therapy.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this. TBI.
Yeah.
In the military.
Yes.
It's a common or growing issue.
For sure.
I've read some articles recently on the use of CBD and treating it.
Yep.
Do you see the military getting to the point where they'll allow CBD use?
I think, yes, I do, but it's going to be a little bit. I think we're going to have to wait till federally it's more okay. I think right now it's still connected with, everyone's always scared that there's going to be too much THC in it, right? So until we can figure out that when people sell that stuff or we get it to use for troops, that it's not going to have the THC piece in it, I think it's going to be out until, of course, it's legal everywhere. But I think CBD is helpful. I think it'll come into play a bit more once I think it's had more time to kind of percolate through everything.
Now, you went to NICO.
I did.
Was that at your choice, or, well, let me step backwards a little bit. Mm-hmm. When did you first start realizing that, hey, I need some help with this?
I think I kept going back to the emergency room or back to the doctor for really bad headaches and anxiety. And the psych that was there for us just recommended me to it. I didn't even know what it was. I hadn't heard of it before. I hadn't had any friends that had been to NICO. And so when he kind of talked me through it, he said, hey man, you might get a lot of benefit from this. They do a lot of different treatments. It's not going to cure you of anything, but it's just going to expose you to these different things that are available for folks to kind of get through this. And so that's how I went. I think I had to wait quite a while, maybe 3 or 6 months to get into the cohort. There's only 10 spots every time. So it took me a little bit to get into it. I think I canceled the first time and then when I finally went, I was really glad I did. But absolutely, I wasn't forced to go, but I wasn't able to deploy anymore just because I had a couple of head injuries and they're like, hey, we need to have you slow down. When I went to NICO, they were actually offering to medically retire me, but I was kind of close to 20. So I just stayed and finished kind of non-medically.
So with going to NICO, would that have pretty much guaranteed the fact that you would have had to have transitioned out?
No, I went. Once you have a couple of diagnoses, they offer it to you because they think, hey, you're struggling. You might get more care if you're not in the service anymore. We can help you start that process, or you can go back and we'll just set up some care for you. So I just decided to stay in and kind of finish and go through the care in the service rather than exit the Navy and get out and kind of do it that way.
And so what year did you get out of the Navy?
2015, I retired.
So you've been retired now about 6 years, coming up on 7 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So going way back, where's hometown for you? Where'd you grow up?
So I was born in Southern California in Riverside. That's where I was from. My family's from Orange County and Riverside. I spent most of my school years in Northern California, up in Nevada City and Grass Valley, which is not too far from Sacramento, not too far from Lake Tahoe. So I was there from elementary school through junior year in high school, and then moved back down to Southern California.
What caused your family to move?
Divorce. Oh, folks got divorced. Yeah.
And high school sports?
Yeah. So I did swimming and water polo all through school. So swimming from very little, all the way up into high school. And then when I got into high school, found water polo and then really got into water polo and played that. And
growing up, what were you looking at for your career? Or was college on your radar?
No, not really. I mean, I did go to college for a minute when I first finished high school. But yeah, I didn't really have a plan at all. It was just to kind of get out there and do my own thing.
Where'd you go to college?
I started at Long Beach State and made it for, a couple semesters and then dropped out.
Some we have in common. I'm a graduate of Cal State Long Beach.
Oh, there you go.
What were you studying at the time?
Oceanography.
So you've always kind of had an interest in the ocean.
I did, yeah. So when I dropped out of school, I kind of messed around with some work for a while, and then I went to hard hat diving school in Long Beach as well, to to go be a commercial diver. So I went to school for that, became a commercial diver for about 6 months. And then that didn't really work out. And so that's what led me into
just
joining the
too
Navy.
much fun, or
No fun at all. It's kind of like working on a construction site, but underwater. So,
okay.
I went to Galveston, Texas, worked on an oil platform for a little bit. As a new guy, you don't dive. You just kind of hold the hose and do all the kind of nug work, cleaning up, which is fine. That's what all new folks do in the new job. But I wasn't even able to pay my student loans with what I was making as minimum wage. You don't make any money unless you're actually diving. And so when I was kind of looking at ways to defer student loans, the military is one of them. And so I thought, I can go be a diver in the Navy. That's what led me to go try and get in the Navy.
So when you decided to go in the military, were you looking at that for a career or just to get your loans paid off?
Just to get my loans paid off. And I was already a diver. I thought, I'll go be a Navy diver. And that's what kind of led me to the recruiter's office.
And I would imagine then going into the Navy, already having that experience, they were quick to say, yes, you're going to be a Navy diver.
Not at all. So when I first got, it was actually closed. So, I don't want to dive into how Navy recruiting or the service works, but anyways, they didn't have any availability for me to go to Navy dive school. They said, hey, they dive at BUD/S, at SEAL training. You can go try that. And that's what kind of kicked me off. And so that's how I got on my path to going to BUD/S and becoming a SEAL.
Now, today, do you still enjoy diving?
No, not at all.
You're like, I'll stay on top of the water. That's about it.
It's like work. Yeah.
And so what year did you go into the Navy?
93.
So total of about 22, 23 years?
22, almost 23. Yep.
When you got out, were you ready to get out, or did you?
Oh yeah, I was ready to get out. I was ready to get out at 20, but a couple of guys were offering me a job where I wouldn't have to deploy anymore. I'd be gone from my family. And so I said, okay, I'll finish this out. And I stayed here in San Diego the last couple of years, so I didn't have to travel any longer. So I stayed in until just a little bit more than 22 years.
I want to get back to that. But one thing real quick, I read about you got into rock climbing, or you were heavily into rock climbing for a while, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Explain something to me.
Sure.
So I saw the documentary on the gentleman who climbed El Capitan.
Okay.
And there's two types of climbing. There's free solo and free climbing.
Uh-huh.
What's the difference?
Free solo means that you're just climbing by yourself, right? So you might just have some climbing shoes and a chalk bag. And so you don't have any ropes or any protective equipment at all. So definitely the most dangerous. Free climbing, normal free climbing is just you climb, and as you go, you put some protection in the rock, whether it's you putting something in a crack or a fissure, or there's actually bolts that someone has put in there, like physical metal bolts, to arrest your fall so you don't fall to the ground.
Can you still do that though individually, or do you have to have a partner with that?
You can do it by yourself. It's just a lot more equipment. You're going up and then getting to the top and then rappelling down, collecting all the stuff. It's much more arduous. So you can do it by yourself. It's just a lot more work.
Did you ever free solo?
When I was younger, I did. Yeah.
What was the highest you ever went?
Are you familiar with Talkeets?
I've heard of it.
It's in Idlewild.
Yes.
So it's a couple hundred feet, and it was pretty easy climbing, but I scared myself on it. So luckily it stopped me from doing it.
Okay. Because you're bringing up what I wanted to get to is for somebody to decide to free solo El Capitan, as a climber, do you have the ability to rest at any point in time? Or is it, because I would imagine that once you commit to that, you're going to get to a point where it's like, I either have to go all the way up or I've got to go all the way back down.
Yep.
How do you rest it when you're doing something like that?
There are spots that you can rest. It just depends on where you're going. But the reason that people like it is because you don't have to carry a bunch of gear. You could probably not even carry much water. And so you're very light. You don't have to stop. There's a lot less gear. And so that's what's the appeal of it, right? And then you're by yourself. And so it's very peaceful. And you become very focused like we do with anything, whether it's shooting or riding a bike or driving. You have to get incredibly focused to stay in the moment and do that. And with solo climbing, it's uber like that, right? So people get very addicted to it. But there are rest spots, but there's a lot of spots where there is no even climbing down. When you get into those pretty extreme overhung type spots, you're not going to be able to down climb though. There's only going up.
So you're at a point where once you're there, you've got no other option. You're going or you're not. It's
right.
There's no kind of, I don't feel like doing this anymore.
Right.
You're stuck.
Exactly.
Do you ever do any more rock climbing, or did you completely give it up?
I don't. My kids all like to do it, so I'll go and go with them. But I haven't done it in a long time. I stopped quite a few years ago. A buddy that I had climbed with for years, he's kind of my climbing partner. He died in Iraq, and I kind of got turned off to it. And I didn't really get back into it until my kids got a little bit older and started doing it. So I've bouldered around in climbing gyms and things, but nothing outside anymore.
Because it sounds like you really enjoy what would be deemed the alternate or type sports, not the traditional baseball, basketball type stuff.
Sure. I was never good at any of those.
was your family into rock climbing and
Not at all. Not at all. And we didn't do, I was real skinny, scrawny little kid. So I didn't do football. I wasn't any good at baseball or basketball. So swimming was kind of a good thing for me. And getting in the ocean, my mom was big into taking us to the beach. So we were always at the coast.
When did you start surfing?
Probably middle school, I think. Yeah.
Ever think about doing it competitively, or was it always just a hobby?
No. I really never liked the competitive thing of it. I liked getting out by myself with my friends and enjoying the ocean. The competitive part wasn't ever something that really appealed to me. It's fun to go watch, but it wasn't something that called to me.
So getting back to your military career,
Mm-hmm.
when you saw the end of the train coming,
Yep.
what was your transition plan at that point in time?
As you know, it's easy when you go, you've probably had a lot of friends in law enforcement. It's easy to just go into another law enforcement job. Same with the military. If I can continue doing something similar to what I'm doing, it's an easier transition. So that's what I did. I interviewed with quite a few contracting companies, big firms that provide contracts to special operations or the Navy or the military. And I started working while I was on terminal leave, which means it was the end of my career. I had, 3 or 4 months of leave. And so I started working while I was still in the Navy. And it just kept going, did that for a couple of years.
Is there a lot of traveling behind that?
There is a lot of traveling, gone all the time. You make great money. But as you know, it's kind of, we just talked about a little bit before we got on the air, but it gets kind of empty because you don't really feel like you're part of a group or something larger than yourself anymore. You're just kind of doing your own thing and going home. So it's a bit different. It's you don't have that kind of team feeling that you had before.
Generally speaking, are you not working with other military people, or just not the ability to develop that kind of, I'll loosely call it that tribe mentality?
No, sure. I mean, when I retired, I was teaching SEALs in Army Special Forces. So I got to be around the same guys I'd been with before. It was just different. I wasn't really on the inside anymore. I was just kind of looking in, and there's people that knew me from when I was active duty, but the longer you're away, the more you don't really know what's happening. And so you kind of get further and further separated unless you want to really stay in it and work, at an operational unit, which I wasn't really interested in.
If somebody's interested in going that route, though, is it largely domestic work or international work?
Both. Absolutely.
And you can choose whichever way you want to go?
You can. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of overseas work as well, but there's plenty here stateside if you'd like to stay here.
So you're now affiliated with One More Wave.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that a little bit more, but how did you come to get connected with that?
The founder, Alex, and Kyle, they're two of my buddies. We both served together in the teams. They were doing it. They started it right as I was retiring. So I knew what they were doing. I was helping out, volunteering. I volunteered for probably a year in basically the same position I have now as an employee. And as we kind of grew and we got more popular, Starbucks did a documentary on us. And after that, we kind of exploded with applications and more interest. And so we needed to hire somebody. And since I was the only one that was out of the Navy, the other guys were still active duty. And I was coming off a contract. I had it just worked out perfectly. And so I just came on and started taking on the operations job for One More Wave.
So for those that don't know what One More Wave is or does, what is One More Wave?
Sure. One More Wave's a nonprofit. We're based here in San Diego, California. And what we do is we provide injured and disabled veterans with customized surfing equipment. And that could be a wetsuit for somebody that's an amputee that needs something specialized, or surfboards, or anything really that's getting you riding the waves. We've got people that stand up paddleboard. We've got people that use things called wave skis, which is where you sit on top. Maybe someone can't stand and still wants to ride a wave. There's quite a few different options. But yeah, it's just whatever the person needs to get what we call surf therapy.
So does someone need to know how to surf to come to you?
They do, just because we don't provide any instruction right now. The reason we kind of started was there was a niche to fill. So here in San Diego, the Naval Hospital has a surf clinic. And so when people are wounded or injured, there's a lot of different options for them to go get some other, exercise or, something to kind of take up your mind while you're transitioning probably out of the military. There could be horseback riding, mountain biking. This was a clinic for surfing here in Del Mar Beach. And so we would volunteer there, and there was guys coming back from pretty serious injuries, amputations, and they would want to surf, but there was no one making adaptive surfboards at that time. There's a couple guys in Hawaii that would make some things, but people putting handles on boards or strengthening the deck for somebody with a prosthetic wasn't happening at the time. So that's how it started. And so we filled a niche of specialized equipment because there's quite a few really cool nonprofits out there that provide surfing instruction to veterans and active duty. So since they're already doing that, we didn't feel like we needed to do that. So we just do gear. And so someone needs to know how to surf for us to give them equipment. So what we do is people will apply online. I talk to everybody, we interview them, and then we go get in the water with them and figure out what's going to be the best fit, whether it's they haven't surfed in a long time and maybe a foam version, something, I hate to say Costco, but you think that's what I think of, right? You think of the Wave Storms,
right?
That's a foam top, or all the way to a full custom with artwork. It just depends on the person.
How much input does the person get to have in the artwork that gets put on the board?
They do all of it. So if we decide that, hey, they're going to get a board and the board's going to have some artwork because they might gain from some art therapy working with our artist, then they do the whole thing. So they work with one of our artists over the phone, and they go back and forth and design, color. They might put pictures of, someone they lost downrange or family members or something that's meaningful to them. Maybe it's a sports team, maybe it's their old unit, whatever they want to make it really theirs. And then they're completely involved. If they're local, they'll actually go to the shop. They can watch them shape the boards and do what's glassing. What glassing is resin and putting the fiberglass on and making it an actual waterproof board. So they can be a part of the whole process if they're close. It's pretty cool.
Do you only have locations in San Diego?
We build all the shops here, but we also, part of our mission is also community, right? So community just means other vets or people to go surf with. And so we have groups all over the U.S. that go surf, and we meet once a month to go surf regularly. And then we also have some texting apps that let guys and gals get together and surf.
So if somebody's in middle America, Nebraska, do they still could they have access to this, or would they have to relocate out here?
Right. So you need to be within an hour or so of the coast to ride waves, but we have people in Texas that are pulled behind a boat. And so we make those kind of boards as well. So as long as you're riding a wave, we're happy to make gear for you. We started in the beginning kind of branching out. And if people wanted to, paddle a stand-up paddle board in a lake or something, or a reservoir, and it kind of got out of our lane, we couldn't really control it. So we had to get back to one more wave. So riding a wave. So we do have people not on the coast that are also using our stuff.
One of the things that I've read is somebody doesn't have to be necessarily honorably discharged to partake in your program. You'll actually work with people who've, for no better terms, maybe had some problems in their career.
No, absolutely. And so I'm glad you bring that up because, maybe someone that had a rough run at the end of their term needs more help than everybody else. And so we're open to everybody, whether you had an honorable discharge or or you got into some other trouble and whatever might have happened, we're happy to help out. Or because what we saw happening a lot was a lot of folks would get a DUI and get kicked out. And then you realize what happened was they got a traumatic brain injury overseas. No one really diagnosed it. They started acting out, getting in trouble, showing up late, get a DUI, they get kicked out. And now they're like, man, I got hurt overseas and no one cares. And so we found that those folks needed help even more than everybody else to be brought back into kind of a family that cares about them and kind of empathize with things that they've gone through. So yes. And we also don't have a time frame when you have to have served. So it's not just post 9/11, it's everybody. So 2 years ago, we were making boards for a Vietnam veteran and then a guy that got injured in Syria. So we're wide open to everybody.
So as long as you're a vet, you're open to your services.
A vet and have some type of disability. It could be, I don't know if you're familiar with how the VA works, but if you have 0% disability, meaning you got injured, you're not being compensated, but the VA says, hey, we see that this happened in the future. If you need help, we'll help you out. So all anyone needs is a 0% from the VA, and we're happy to help.
And what are you seeing from the people who get involved in your program? I guess what I'm getting at is the whole, there's the TBI aspect, but there's the whole PTS. Yep. And I'm learning more about this as I go. Sure. But it's about getting people in the mindset of right now that really helps them.
Right.
How does surfing do that? Well,
it forces you to think right now because the ocean doesn't care, right? If you want to think about something else and not pay attention, you're going to get hit by a wave or get knocked on the head or spend some time underwater that you'd rather not. So surfing, like many things, makes you focus on the right now. It makes you very present. And being around other folks that maybe experience the same, job that you had or experiences overseas or at home, makes that all the better, right? You're out in the ocean. Someone else also has PTSD or depression, anxiety, can't sleep, addiction, all those problems that we go through. Knowing there's other people with you that have experienced those same things is pretty incredible. And it really lets people, I think, get back to how they used to be, which is what I've experienced. Once I feel like it probably takes 3, 4, 5 years finishing, whether it's law enforcement or the military, to be like, oh, I used to enjoy this other thing. I haven't done it in a long time, but I'm going to try it now. And so I think being exposed to things that makes you present, like surfing, really can help you heal like that.
And you have groups, though, around the world who get together and surf.
We do. We have groups in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, Okinawa, and then on both coasts, up and down both coasts.
So for somebody who wants to be part of this, can they volunteer their time?
Oh, absolutely. So we have probably 1,200 people that are signed up to be volunteers, and many people that just want to come surf. And so people will sign up. We add them to our kind of texting threads that we have, and they'll just go hop and go surf. Because it's not just vets, it's anybody that wants to come surf with us. We provide equipment to vets, but we'd love everyone coming, family, friends, whoever might come. And so, yeah, they get added to these groups, and then people just pop on. We use a texting app, and what's been great, we thought at first it would be just for, hey, I'm in Southern California, I'm going to go to Huntington Beach. I'll be at the piers. Anyone want to go? And then 3 people might say yes. But what it also showed us was there's people that say, hey, I'm in a chair. I have a surfboard. I need help. I can't get from the sand to the ocean.
Right.
And people pop on. You wouldn't believe 10 people, say, oh, I'm going to come help. And so it's just incredible to see, the larger community just help each other get out in the ocean and do the same thing we all want to do.
So if somebody wants to volunteer, should they get connected through your website?
Absolutely. They can hop on the website and sign up to be a volunteer. Most people think that if they come to be a volunteer, that there's going to be, and this might sound crass, a chain of people carrying handicapped folks or amputees to the ocean. That's not the case at all. If you try and do that to somebody you don't know, they probably flip you off or tell you, leave me alone. People don't want that kind of help. If they do, they'll ask, but usually it's just, hey, let's go get in the water, hang out. There are times when we do need that kind of help, but usually it's, hey, let's get to the beach, and just once those folks are in the water, they want to be treated like everybody else. And so people are sometimes disappointed when they come to the beach. They kind of think that's what's going to happen. And that does happen sometimes, but it's pretty rare. But absolutely, we can always use help, and they just do it on the website.
Yeah, people aren't looking to be coddled. They may need assistance on occasion.
Absolutely.
But don't treat me like I'm not able to do something.
Right. Absolutely.
And for your organization, the people who come to you, the equipment is given to them, or it's not something that's like loaned to you? No,
it's a grant. We give it to you. Absolutely. And then once you have this equipment, we're going to keep you using it as long as you want to keep going. So if you break the board, we'll make a new one. If you move on to something different, we'll make a new one for you. If all of a sudden you can't use this piece because you've got a new injury, or injury has changed, or something's happened, well, we're going to try to keep you going. And same thing with everything you need to be in the water and be experiencing that ocean surf therapy, we're going to keep it going. So I'm also reaching out to people all the time to make sure they don't need anything, trying to keep everyone involved all the time. Because what we found is, texting people is great, but if it's easy to go, I'm fine in a text, but you talk to somebody on the phone, you're like, oh, okay, let's get outside. So it's really easy to, I've had PTSD for several years, depression, anxiety, the whole drink too much, all that stuff. It's really easy to isolate and, feel sorry for yourself and stay home. But if a buddy calls up and says, hey, get off your butt, let's go surf, then you got a better chance of doing it than through a text. And so that's a big thing for us, is communication.
No, communication is a huge component. It's like you bring up a great point. We've become a society that everything's via text and email.
Right.
And granted, it's a huge advantage.
Sure.
But when you're in that isolation phase, if nobody's willing to push and kind of pull you out of it, and really kind of, for no better term, get in your kitchen and be like, hey, you doing okay? What can I do for you?
Right.
And we need more of us doing that. That's one of the big things that I want to do with this podcast is it's having those difficult conversations sometimes, because if you see your friend and maybe they don't seem what was previously normal, have that difficult conversation. Don't let them just kind of flounder by themselves.
No, absolutely. And it's okay to make them uncomfortable. And a little bit of shame from a friend is enough to get you out of the house, right? I mean, we don't want to say that, but that's very true. Someone comes in and, hey, let's go. What are you doing? Come on, quit messing around. You going to sit here and play video games and drink booze by yourself? You're 35 years old. Let's go outside and go surf and play some basketball. Go ride your bike. Let's go do something. And that kind of kicks you out of your funk. It has for me. It took a couple friends to go, hey, man, what are you doing? I haven't seen you out in the water in a long time. Let's go surf. And it helps a lot.
Going down a little bit of a rabbit hole with you.
Sure.
When did you first start noticing that you were dealing with those issues, in which you were trying to self-medicate through alcohol?
Sure. I think when I stopped deploying all the time. because I would just be in kind of survival mode, right? I'm just home so I can go overseas again. And we're training, we're here, we're getting ready to go. And then you go and you come back, get a little bit of break, and then you're doing it again and again and again. And for me, when what we call op tempo, right? When there's so much war going on, you could stay deployed all the time if you want. There's someone getting hurt or can't go, you can take their place and you can just stay gone if you like. And so that's what I did. It's easier, right? It's easier to go do that than be home and deal with things that are happening. So for me, it was when I stopped. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. For me, I had a whole bunch of emotional problems for sure, but I mean chemical. I had been blown up several times. I'd screwed up my pituitary glands. I was in this fight or flight all the time. I couldn't sit still. I was pacing in the house. And so it wasn't until I stopped, honestly, until I got off the track that we talked about a little bit of, caffeine, booze, and just keep no sleep, Ambien, doing it all over again and going and going and going and going. And for us too, when you go overseas, we're only working at night. And so you're getting no sunlight. That's really bad for you after years too. So it's really interesting.
Looking back on it with hindsight being 2020, is there a way to be involved in that and be deployed and yet not suffer the ramifications of it?
I can, but I think you have to be, for me, I don't think I was mature enough to be able to step back and go, it's okay to take a break for a little bit. I'm not a bad, service member because I need a little time in between this stuff. But you get into this kind of cycle of, I got to keep going. I got to keep doing this. And you like it, right? Because you get to do your job, but it's also just crushing you because you get kind of, I don't want to say addicted to it, but you just get used to it over and over again.
I can relate to it from the law enforcement side because I've worked with those people that they're constantly working the overtime shifts and they're
right.
Constantly at work. And I would imagine that when you're within your peer group, if everybody else is going to deploy, you don't want to be seen as the weak link or whatever you want to call it by saying, hey, I need to take a break this time.
Right.
Do you see that changing in the military?
I think it has for us. And I can just only say from my periscope, was just for us, they really tried to help slow people down like that. It was like, hey, let's take a break. It's okay to go be do something where you can be an instructor here locally. You don't have to go deploy all the time. You could do something different, and just giving options and making sure that it's okay for people to take a break when they get back. You really need to, from a leadership perspective, provide the opportunities for people to do some family time, do some downtime, have those jobs that aren't ones that deploy all the time. And yeah, I think the military is doing a better job about it now.
You think it'll become a point or ever get to the point where it's a mandatory downtime?
I think they try to do that. There's easy ways to get around it. Yeah.
People can work the system.
Absolutely.
As far as you, how much has developing your new tribe helped you make that transition away?
Oh, incredibly. When I retired from the Navy and I just started working, government contracts, it's really like I never left. I'm just doing the same thing and being gone all the time. And it really wasn't helpful to me. It took me stepping away completely from those type of jobs and being more focused on others that really, I think propelled me into getting better, was to, have something bigger than yourself to work towards, and helping others and, service to others has been incredible for me and my healing for sure.
You have young children yourself.
I do.
For people who come to One More Wave, can they bring their children with them?
They sure can. Yeah, everyone can come to the beach.
Obviously, they would need to have their own equipment, but it would be okay to include family.
Oh, sure. My kids surf with us all the time. Yep.
Are you guys planning it, or have you done any big trips, so to speak? Like, hey, we're going to, 2022, we're going to go surf Costa Rica or something like that.
No, it's funny. We've had lots of folks that are amazing that offer us their homes down there, because there's a lot of people that have vacation homes in Costa Rica that want us to surf. We haven't made that transition.
It's a horrible place to visit.
It's terrible. Yeah. But when we did start talking about it, COVID happened. So we've kind of pump the brakes on that right now. But we may in the future. Right now, we're just trying to really focus on, we have 500 people, 515, I think, 17 that we've provided equipment to. And so what we think is equally important is to make sure all those people feel like they're still part of it. And so reaching out to them, making sure they have all their stuff, opportunities for those folks, if they're still interested in surfing, to go surf with all these other people. And so that part has been really important to us, not to get so big that we can't provide that specialized, really boutique support that we'd like to do.
So explain the process. Somebody has had no experience with One More Wave. What's the process like to get involved?
Absolutely. Like to apply for gear?
Yes.
Yeah. So they'll hop on our website on onemorewave.com and they'll just apply. And so the application will have a couple questions about, I think it's 20 questions maybe, just about their surfing experience. They attach their DD-214. DD-214 is just the military form that you get when you leave the service. It just kind of proves for us that you're in the service. And again, I don't care if you deployed 50 times to Iraq or didn't deploy ever because your job didn't need you to. There's no scorecard, right? So just because you were in Mogadishu in 1993 and it was a terrible battle doesn't mean that you're at front of the line for someone that was in Kirkland, Washington for their whole time. It doesn't make any difference to me. As long as you've served and you have some type of disability and you want to surf, I'm happy to help you out. And so people apply those things. And what I do is I look and make sure, just a quick vetting to make sure they're actually vet. We haven't had many, but we have had some people apply that aren't vets that have falsified documents, but luckily that's rare. And so once we figure that out, then I interview every single person on the phone. We chat and we figure out what's going to be the right thing. Are they kind of new or they haven't surfed in a long time and they might need an entry-level piece of equipment, or they need something specialized and we're going to start building it. And then we have a shop that we use. Excuse me. The shop's been doing this for a long time, so they'll work with the people to make sure that they have the right equipment. If there's going to be art, there's a little branch off portion of this where they'll work with the artist to really come up with what's going to make their board magic. And sometimes it takes a long time. Some people are really suffering. They might be really in the depths of some substance abuse or maybe some depression or whatever it is that they're going through. They may not want to communicate for a couple of months. So we're just try to be available. And when they're ready to talk, then we'll work through the piece. Something that's been pretty powerful for me was we started going to some of the rehab centers here in San Diego where there's vets that are, have gone through a program, and I started going and speaking over there, and we'd take them out too and get everyone kind of involved. And so just the process is just get on there and apply, and we're going to do our best to serve you.
I think it's great that you guys are taking that out, not just kind of sitting back and go, hey, we're here, come see us. It's making the effort to go to other veterans. Because I do believe you hit on a great point. I think for a lot of them, if they don't feel that they're worthy or they didn't do as much as the next guy, they may think, oh, I can't ask for this assistance.
Right. Right. And so that's why, and people always go, oh, do you, me and Alex and Kyle, the people that were in the beginning of this, we're all SEALs. And they go, oh, you guys just help SEALs. We go, no, we really don't. It's a very small number of SEALs that have actually gotten equipment. It's everybody else. And so most people, when I get on the phone, even if they've been in the service for a long time, they still feel like they're not worthy, and I think it's kind of a male thing too, where you feel like you don't deserve things. And so I spend a lot of time convincing people that yes, you do, you serve just like I did. There's no scoreboard. When you get out of the Navy, or out of the service, no one cares. You know what I mean? You're just moving on. You served. Cool. Let's do this next thing. And so, getting people to feel comfortable enough to ask, it's pretty challenging, but it's fun. It's fun to see people come out of their shell once they realize, oh, you guys are just like us. Nobody's a pro surfer. We're not Kelly Slater. We're all goofballs outside.
They all wish they were, though.
Sure. I mean, sometimes you go to the beach and there's no waves, and we just drink coffee and talk a little trash, because that's really the stuff you miss, right? From whether you're law enforcement or fire department or service members, you go out and being with your people with similar backgrounds and friends, and maybe a little trash talking, and just enjoy yourselves. And so that's what we try to do in the water and out of the water.
Well, and you bring up a good point, and that's the catch-22 in this, especially for the male side of the factor. Mm-hmm. We tend to get in our head of, we got to be the tough guy, or we can't be perceived as, the weak guy. On the other hand, there's that, what comes from military law enforcement is that sense of family and talking trash and roasting each other.
Right.
So you've got to play off both of them. You need that team, that tribe mentality, but at the same token, we have to always be better in making sure we're including those who may not feel like they should be part of it.
No, and that really slapped me in the face probably 2.5 years ago. I can't remember anyways, a female veteran say she didn't think that we serviced females. And I thought, oh my gosh, we really have failed in what we're doing, because women feel like they can't apply for equipment from us. So we really kind of changed what we're doing and made sure we're properly showing pick. We got lots of women that have received equipment from us. We just weren't showing it on social media, and we're doing a bad job of making it available to everybody. So exactly what you're saying, we have to make sure we're constantly reaching out and being open to everybody so that everyone can enjoy what we're trying to provide.
Where do you see One More Wave growing to, or what's kind of on the horizon for what you guys want to do?
Just helping as many people as we can, and keeping that really specialized service available so that they feel special. I want them to feel like we definitely want them to feel like we're here for them, and we don't care what happened or where you served or what you did. We're just happy to bring you into the fold and get you out here and get onto something healthy instead of something unhealthy like substance or just isolation, right? It's pretty incredible.
The two things that seem to go together. It seems like the deeper you get into the substance abuse, the deeper you get into the isolation.
Absolutely.
And it's real easy to keep going down that rabbit hole if you don't have people trying to pull you out.
It is. And especially, you go through, you have this substance problem, then maybe you get divorced, and now you've got all these custody issues, and now you have no job, and it just spirals. It's really easy for people to get lost, I think. Where's
your bucket list surfing spot?
Morocco.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody even talk about surfing Morocco. I know South America is the big thing for a lot of people, but I've never is Morocco known for its surfing?
It's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. I'd also like to go to South Africa. I haven't been to Jeffreys Bay.
Sweet. Any last minute advice you'd like to give just from your experience and somebody who may be kind of in the middle or in that dark hole?
Sure. Just reach out to your friends, think of people that you have, and family and friends, and don't think that you should the part that I learned is that no one knows you're suffering if you don't tell them. I mean, we're all really good at hiding. I remember when I first started doing a couple podcasts, my family's like, I never knew you were struggling. And I felt bad for not including my family. So my big advice would be, to include your family in what you're thinking, and it's okay to talk and be vulnerable.
The including the family is one of the big things that I've learned, because we tend to, one of the isolation things we do is we don't want to expose our family to it.
Right.
So it's a huge catch-22, because you want to talk to them, but then unfortunately, if you give them too much detail, they become a vicarious victim of what you've experienced.
Right.
So now, have you gone to counseling other than NICO?
Absolutely.
Do you still go?
I haven't probably in about a year, but yeah, I went to counseling for a long time. Absolutely.
What's your experience with guys once they make that transition to go into counseling? Do they tend to benefit from it, or is it a struggle to get them to go there?
I think once people are there, they realize the benefit. They realize they're not weak or failing or somehow a bad person because they're seeking help. I mean, you don't do that if you break your arm. You don't try to fix it in the garage by yourself. You go to the hospital. Same thing with mental health. You need to go talk to somebody, get some, and you'll feel better. I guarantee it.
Well, I appreciate your time, sir.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.